In his time, Darwin often confessed he could not explain why there were no traces of living organisms in the fossil record older than roughly 500 million years. Today, science has successfully identified evidence of life several billion years older. However, the separation of the living from the non-living occurred much earlier, yet tangible traces of this event appear to be non-existent. That's precisely why the mystery of life's origin, which cannot be studied through fossil materials, is the subject of theoretical and experimental inquiry. Today, we can confidently say that the origins of life lie on another planet, and it's not merely because the first biological entities were brought to us from space, although such hypotheses are discussed. It's simply that early Earth was vastly different from what it is now. Hello, dear friends. In today's video, we would like to tell you about how life began on our planet. But before we begin, we would like to ask you to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on new interesting videos about the mysteries of our world. A brilliant metaphor for understanding the essence of life belongs to the famous French naturalist Georges Cuvier, who likened a living organism to a whirlwind. Indeed, a tornado shares many characteristics with a living organism. It maintains a certain shape, moves, grows, takes in something, and expels something, reminiscent of our metabolism. A tornado can split, that is, reproduce, and ultimately, it transforms the surrounding environment. But it only lives as long as the wind blows. Once the energy flow dissipates, the tornado loses both form and movement. Therefore, the key question of research is to find the energy flow that started the process of biological life and provided dynamic stability to the first metabolic systems, much like how the wind sustains a tornado's existence. First and foremost, it's worth noting that scientists studying the origins of life often prioritize the origin of the organic substances that make up a living cell. These are DNA, RNA, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. But if you take all these substances and lay them out in a vessel, they won't assemble themselves. It's not a puzzle. Any organism is a system in constant exchange with its environment. Even if you were to grind a modern living organism into molecules, no one could reassemble those molecules into a living being. Let's now explore where the place for life's emergence was on the early Earth, which was not very hospitable for it. One of the currently existing hypotheses considers hot springs at the bottom of oceans as the cradle of life, where water temperatures can exceed 100 degrees Celsius. Such springs exist to this day around the rift zones of the ocean floor and are called black smokers. When overheated water erupts from the depths, dissolved minerals are brought up in ionized form, which often precipitates immediately as ore. At first glance, this environment seems deadly to any life, but bacteria hyperthermophiles already live where the water cools to 120 degrees Celsius. Iron and nickel sulfides brought to the surface form sedimentary deposits resembling porous slag rock. Some modern scientists, like Michael Russell, have proposed the hypothesis that these bubble-rich rocks were the cradle of life. Ribonucleic acids and peptides could have formed within microscopic bubbles, thus turning these pores into primary generators, where early metabolic pathways separated and transformed into cells. The hypothesis of life's origin in hot springs is intriguing not only as a version of cell origin, but also for the opportunity to grasp the energetic foundation of life, describing it using the laws of physics. All our cellular reactions are inherently electrochemical. They involve electron transfer and proton gradients, which drive energy transfer. Because ocean water is more acidic and hydrothermal waters are more alkaline, potential differences arose, which are extremely important for life. And the semi-permeable walls of the bubbles acted as membranes sustaining these electrochemical reactions. The difference between the environments below the seabed, where rocks dissolve in superheated water, and above the seabed, where the water cools, also creates potential differences, resulting in the active movement of ions and electrons. This phenomenon even has a name: geochemical battery. In addition to a suitable environment for the formation of organic molecules and the presence of an energy flow, there is another factor that makes oceanic hydrothermal vents the most likely birthplace of life: metals. As mentioned before, hot springs are located in rift zones, where the seafloor spreads apart and hot lava approaches closely. Seawater seeps into cracks, which then exits back out as superheated steam. Under immense pressure and high temperatures, basalts dissolve like sugar, carrying out huge amounts of iron, nickel, tungsten, manganese, zinc, and copper. All these metals play a colossal role in living organisms as catalysts. Reactions in our living cells are governed by enzymes. These are quite large protein molecules that accelerate reaction rates compared to similar reactions outside cells, sometimes by several orders of magnitude. Interestingly, within the molecule of an enzyme consisting of thousands and thousands of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and sulfur atoms, there are only one or two metal atoms. Yet, if you remove this pair of atoms, the protein ceases to be a catalyst. Why then do we need such a large protein molecule? On one hand, it manipulates the metal atom, placing it at the reaction site. On the other hand, it shields and protects it from combining with other elements. And therein lies profound meaning. Many of the metals that were abundant on early Earth before the existence of oxygen are now only available where oxygen is absent. For example, volcanic sources contain a lot of tungsten. But as soon as this metal reaches the surface where it encounters oxygen, it immediately oxidizes and precipitates. The same thing happens with iron and other metals. Thus, the task of a large protein molecule is to keep the metal active. All this leads to the thought that metals were primary in the history of life. The emergence of proteins was a factor in preserving the primary environment where metals or their simple compounds retained their catalytic properties. One of the oldest types of enzymes includes hydrogenases, which catalyze the simplest of chemical reactions, yet a very important one, reversible hydrogen reduction from protons and electrons. The activators of this reaction are iron and nickel, which were abundant on early Earth. There was also plenty of hydrogen. It was released during mantle degassing. Apparently, hydrogen was the primary energy source for the earliest metabolic systems. After all, in our era, the overwhelming majority of reactions carried out by bacteria involve actions with hydrogen. As the primary source of electrons and protons, hydrogen forms the basis of microbial energy, serving as a kind of energy currency for them. Perhaps the earliest life did not have the composition that today's life does, where the basic elements are carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. The point is, life prefers lighter elements that are easier to play with, but these lighter elements have small ionic radii and form overly strong compounds. Life doesn't need that. It needs to be able to easily break down these compounds. Today we have many enzymes for this, but in the dawn of life, they did not exist. A few years ago, a suggestion was made that some of these 6 major elements of life had heavier but more convenient predecessors. Instead of sulfur as one of the macroelements, it was likely selenium that worked because it easily combined and dissociated. Perhaps arsenic took the place of phosphorus for the same reason. The recent discovery of bacteria that use arsenic instead of phosphorus in their DNA and RNA reinforces these assumptions. And this applies not only to non-metals, but also to metals. Along with iron and nickel in the process of life's formation, tungsten played a significant role. To confirm or refute hypotheses about the original composition of biological molecules, we should pay close attention to bacteria living in unusual environments, possibly remotely resembling the Earth of ancient times. For example, Japanese scientists recently studied one type of bacteria inhabiting hot springs and discovered uranium minerals in their slimy membranes. Why do bacteria accumulate them? Perhaps uranium has some metabolic value for them, for example, using the ionizing effect of radiation. There is another example. At depths of 2 to 3 kilometers in dense sediments, bacteria live quite comfortably without oxygen and sunlight. Such organisms have been discovered, for example, in uranium mines in South Africa. They feed on hydrogen, and there is plenty of it here, because the radiation levels are so high that water dissociates into oxygen and hydrogen. Genetic analogues of these organisms are not found on the Earth's surface. Where did these bacteria originate, and where are their ancestors? Finding answers to these questions becomes a true journey back in time for us, to the origins of life on Earth. But when we manage to find these answers, our life will no longer be the same. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our new videos about the mysteries of the universe and our planet. Let us know in the comments if you liked this video format and what you would like to learn about in the next video. Thank you, and see you next time.